You are standing in the ruins of what used to be a summer camp, a place consecrated by decades of teenage carnage and romantic indifference, the cabins rotting like teeth in a corpse's mouth, and you are watching two things that should not exist in the same universe occupy the same blood-soaked clearing, two entities that have carved their names into the bedrock of horror mythology through methods that became increasingly absurd as the decades wore on. One of them is wearing a mask, a white expressionless thing that would look ridiculous on anyone else, but on him it just looks inevitable, like his face underneath would be a disappointment compared to the silence the mask provides. The other is wearing nothing but the residue of 30 years of accumulated murder, a machete that has become less of a weapon and more of a philosophical statement about the nature of violence. Jason Voorhees versus Michael Meyers. Monster versus killer. Revenge versus pure, unadulterated evil. The kind that doesn't need a motivation, because motivation implies you're capable of feeling something that isn't just an abstract hunger for another body to occupy the mud. You know their stats. Michael has 159 kills across 12 films, each one meticulous, each one calculated with the precision of a man who has transcended murder and turned it into an art form. Jason has 157 kills, which seems close until you realize he did most of them in 8 films, a far more aggressive timeline, a more prolific output from a creature that isn't even technically alive anymore. Jason is 6'5", but Michael is 6'7", which means when they finally look at each other across that clearing, there's a moment where height becomes irrelevant because both of them are extensions of something darker than mere size. Something that exists in the part of the human brain that still remembers when the dark wasn't lit by civilization. Michael moves first. He moves the way a predator moves when it has decided a meal is inevitable, with no rush, because rushing implies doubt, implies hesitation, implies the possibility of failure. He pulls a knife from somewhere, a blade that has been sharpened on the whetstones of 1,000 screams, honed on bone and cartilage, and he walks toward Jason with the confidence of something that doesn't understand the concept of losing, something that has never had to understand it because losing requires the capacity to anticipate outcomes. Jason lifts his machete. In the original films, the machete was just a tool, something practical for clearing brush and human obstacles alike, but over the decades it has evolved into something more absurd, more theatrical. He's cut through 3 people with single swings. He's punched heads clean off bodies with such force that the laws of physics audibly complained. He's taken a liquid nitrogen bath to the face and had it shattered like glass against a steel counter, which is the kind of kill that stops being scary and starts being performance art. They collide in the center of the clearing, and what happens next is the collision of 2 different philosophies of death. Michael fights with technique, with the measured brutality of someone who has studied his prey for years before making contact. He's patient, he's efficient, he understands leverage and angle, and the specific way a knife enters flesh so that it takes the longest possible time to bleed out. Jason fights like a force of nature, like gravity applied directly to the human skeleton. Like someone wrapped all his human rage around the fact that everyone abandoned him and then compressed it into fists that don't follow conventional physics. When Michael's knife meets Jason's machete, the blade breaks. This is unexpected. Michael's entire existence has been predicated on the reliability of that blade, on the fact that it will do exactly what he expects it to do. But Jason's machete is forged from something more durable than mere steel. It's been through a freezer in space and 1,000 improvised kill methods, and it doesn't break like normal things break. Michael doesn't react. He doesn't have a face that reacts. He simply reaches for another knife because Michael Meyers is the kind of killer who has backup plans for his backup plans. Jason doesn't wait. Jason punches. The force of the impact sends Michael backwards 15 feet, his body tumbling through the mud with the elegant grace of something heavy meeting the ground at speed. Michael gets up. Of course he gets up. Both of these things get up. This is the fundamental rule of slashers, that they don't stay down because the moment they stay down is the moment that the final girl has won and the genre collapses. They come at each other again. And this time, Jason grabs Michael's collar and lifts him upward with one hand. Not because of superhuman strength, but because Michael is fundamentally less real than Jason is, less present, less connected to the physics of the world. Jason brings him down on the remains of a picnic table, and the impact splinters wood in a way that seems excessive. Michael's body absorbs punishment that would reduce normal humans to concept art on the forest floor, but Michael is not normal. Michael is a living homunculus, a thing that looks like a human, but is actually something that decided evil was more efficient than biology. They separate again, and in that moment of breathing space, you understand what you're witnessing. This isn't a fight between two killers competing for dominance. This is a fight between two different frameworks of murder finally colliding after decades of parallel existence. Jason kills because he was wronged, because the universe failed him, because his mother died, and with her died the only thing that ever loved him. Michael kills because he emerged from the womb containing nothing but a void shaped like hunger. One of them is tragic. One of them is just the universe's way of saying sometimes things exist that shouldn't, and no amount of therapy or understanding or justice will unfucking them. And the best you can hope for is to die to someone equally broken. They come together one final time, and Jason's machete sinks into Michael's shoulder, deep enough that bone cracks, deep enough that a normal human would be done, finished, ready for the credits. Michael twists, and his remaining knife finds Jason's ribs, and for a moment they are locked together like lovers, both of them bleeding light that is not quite red. And then Michael does something unexpected. He laughs. Or maybe he doesn't laugh. Maybe it's just air escaping from a punctured lung in a way that sounds like laughter to ears that aren't used to hearing Michael Meyers make any sound at all. Jason lifts him and hurls him into a lake, and Michael sinks with the kind of weight that suggests he might stay down, might finally understand the benefit of rest. But you know he won't. You know that in 3 films, Michael will climb out of that water with murder still in his empty eyes, still wearing that mask like a permanent expression of the fact that expression is unnecessary. Jason walks away, his machete dragging through the mud, leaving a trail of blood and chlorine, a trail that will mark him as the victor, the champion of this particular arena. But you understand that they will never be done with each other, that the universe is too small to contain both of them, and eventually one will find the other again, and they will do this dance again, and it will be just as stupid.